Our next session will be in May, will be May 12th with John Peltier talking presenting about Excel charting tips and tricks. John Peltier is the master of Excel charts. If you have not seen any of his presentations, I strongly recommend you, because he's the one. He knows everything about all types of charts and how to create awesome visualizations. I'm sure we all learn a lot from him next time. Just one bit of news. Microsoft just released this image as the Power Query logo. I'm not going to express my opinion about it, but that's the news. That's the news I have for you today. And there's also a new website and the new, sorry, I will come back to the slide and we'll share that in the chat. There's a blog, there's a website about Power Query and the Twitter handle too. So this is MrExcel's Bill Jelen's YouTube channel. You can see here episode 2398 and just over 100,000 subscribers. So if you have not subscribed, I strongly recommend you that you do that and follow Bill's next videos, because Bill is always on top of what's new and or what's buggy to alert us about that. So I strongly recommend you. Bill Jelen has written 60 books about Excel. So the last one is the one that shows in the slide there, MrExcel 2021 Unmasking Excel. So I think this alone is enough to give us a clue about what Bill Jelen knows about Excel. And he's been an MVP for over 16 years or so, Bill?
That sounds right. I don't know.
Yeah, around that. So Bill has been in contact with the Microsoft Excel team since then, and he's always participating in discussions about how to make the tool better, what features would be useful. So you know, you can understand why I'm so happy to have Bill Jelen here today. Thank you, Bill, for joining us, for making the time, and for sharing your knowledge with us. Let us know what else I missed. I know there's a lot more that we could tell about you. Please let us know anything else that I may have missed, and I'm going to stop. Oh, let me see if I have any other. Oh, yeah. So about connections, here's the contact that where you can find Bill Jelen in the social media. Here's mine as well. And I'll put the link in the chat for MrExcel YouTube channel so that you can subscribe. Feel free to connect with us, okay? And to share the news, because if you think these sessions are valuable, other people might find value in that too. And it's just good to pass the good on to others, okay? Share the group or share the session, either this one or any other topic that you find interesting with your connections. It will make good to other people, do good to other people. So welcome, Bill. Thank you so much. Enough talking on my end.
All right,
please take the phone, the microphone and the video camera, and it's yours.
Okay, this is great. I'm really looking forward to today. I love to talk about pivot tables. Pivot tables are my favorite feature in Excel. I've been, talking about Excel for 17 years on the road, and it's just awesome. The power the pivot tables give to us. All right, I'm going to share my desktop. How's that? You should see two different books there on the screen. Is that working?
It's coming up. Yeah, we see it now.
All right. Okay, that's great. On the left-hand side is a book that Mike Alexander and I wrote back in 2006, 2007, somewhere around there, maybe 2005, Pivot Table Data Crunching. That book has everything that we know about pivot tables, and it was originally written by for a publisher named Q out of Indianapolis, and through a series of mergers and everything, it's now a Microsoft Press title. There's been editions, I don't know, 4 or 5 editions about that book. And I'm really proud about that book because that book is the only book that I've ever written that was a #1 best-selling computer book. It was for 36 minutes at 4 a.m. on a Monday in January, a cold Monday at 4 a.m. We were the top-selling computer book. But that doesn't matter, right? I was #1 for 36 minutes,
Yeah.
and I'm keeping that claim.
#1
now,
is #1.
Right, yeah, that's right. Best-selling author. That book is from Microsoft Press, which means that no one here today is getting a free copy from Microsoft Press because they don't give anything away for free. But over here, MrExcel 2021, Unmasking Excel, that book is published by not Microsoft Press, which means that I'm free to give that away to anyone I want. And all of you who showed up on this beautiful, beautiful night to listen to me drone on about pivot tables, what I've done is I've gone through and taken every single pivot table content out of this book. It's about 50 or 60 pages, and Celia will send out a link to that or put a link over in the chat. Everything I talk about today is in that book. That book is brand new. It just came out, I don't know, a few days ago, right? April 7th, it's 6 days old. And because I'm a super great procrastinator, that means it just went to press like 36 days ago or something like that. So it's fresh. All right, Celia, we had a couple of poll questions. Can we do the first one or not?
Yes, let's hope that this works.
Okay.
Okay, I'm pulling out the polls. We have 2 for today.
All right.
So I have one, how often do you use pivot tables? You should see that in the chat. And from there, you should be able to answer, choose your answer, and submit your answer too.
That's funny. I don't think I can see the answers, but you know, choice number 1 and my choice is
yeah. Let's see
that's
if
okay. That's okay.
So we have for now 92% that say all the time. I love pivot tables.
That is awesome. That is great.
93%. 0. Second option said, I keep receiving pivot tables from coworkers, but I am not comfortable creating them.
Okay.
So now it's 3%. So votes are still coming in. We have 59 votes so far.
Right. Okay. So that's great news. That's great news. I usually travel around the country.
It went down to 87%. Okay.
87%.
And then 2%, 8%, 6%. 6%. What's a pivot table?
What's a pivot table? That's a great one. If I have 100 people in the room, they're accountants. They use Excel 40 hours a week. I only have like 40% of the people that say I use Excel pivot tables all the time, and 20% of the people are in the what's a pivot table, right? So this is great that we all know pivot tables. Pivot tables were not invented at Microsoft. They were invented across the country in Cambridge, Massachusetts. At Lotus, a guy there named Pito Salas spent 2 years, came up with the concept for pivot tables. And when Lotus saw how good it was and how powerful it was, they did not put it in Lotus 1, 2, 3 because they were overconfident. They had 89% market share. They didn't need to give that away for free. And they sold it as a separate product called Lotus Improv. And I remember the day that my manager showed me, he had bought a copy for himself, right? He had 13 analysts working for him. He was the manager of all of us. And he had this amazing ability to create pivot tables. I was like shocked. It's like, you can do it in 30 seconds, what would take me 15 minutes. And he's like, yeah, isn't it cool? And I said, well, when do we get ours? He's like, oh, no, these are $100 each. I can't afford 13 of these. You can use my computer at lunch if you want, right? So forget that. I went down at lunch, down to CompUSA, which was the computer reseller down there, and plopped down $100 so I could have pivot tables and do everything. Now, this was back when Lotus still was the dominant player. Excel and Lotus were battling for market share, and every new version, 93, 95, 97, just awesome new features. And it was around Excel 93, maybe 95, that Microsoft borrowed the concept of pivot tables and put it in Excel, right? I get a lot of people who are afraid of pivot tables. They'll say, hey, how can I do this? And I'll say, oh, boy, that would be so easy with a pivot table. And you see them backing away, right? They're like, oh, no, I don't want a pivot table. I don't know why pivot table is so scary to people, all right? If instead it said pivot table, if it said an amazing feature that lets you summarize data in 6 clicks, people are like, oh, yeah, how do I get that? Yeah, but instead it says pivot table up there in the insert tab. And, I don't know why people are so afraid of it. All right, before we create our first pivot table, just a few simple rules of setting up your data.
Sorry to interrupt you. Can I just ask you, you see the Teams tile with my video. Can you minimize that? That's great.
How's
Thank
that?
you.
There you are. Okay. All right. A few simple rules to set up your data for pivot tables. If your data is following what I call list format, then you're in good shape. So list format means no blank rows and blank columns. I occasionally, over the years, have worked for the manager who puts the tiny little columns between the columns like that. I hate that guy. Right? That is just a horrible thing to do. I know QuickBooks does that, these tiny little columns between the columns. It's just a disaster waiting to happen. Someone's going to sort part of that data and not all of that data. So rule number one, no tiny little columns like that. And just in case you're working for that guy who does that, my guy, the reason that he did that was he didn't like the way that Excel underlined things. So if I underline date, you see the underline just DATE, not the whole thing. Right? And our response to that was, okay, well, hey, we'll use the bottom border because the bottom border goes all the way across. But see, if we use the bottom border over here, he did not like that because it was a single line all the way across, kind of like a unit border. And he wanted tiny little gaps between his borders. So he forced us to do this with these tiny little columns between the columns. And, you know, it's just a nightmare. Luckily, I was at a company where, you know, they move people around all the time. And soon I wasn't working for Emma anymore and life just went on. Life was great. But I always told a story about that guy. And I was in Las Vegas, Nevada one time doing a seminar for the IMA, Institute of Managerial Accountants there. And some guy comes up to me at the break and he says, hey, I got a solution for you. He says, you know, there's a couple of different kinds of underlines. I said, single and double, of course. He says, but there's more than that. It's not just these two, underline and double underline. You have to go to the dialog launcher, that little arrow there. And when you click the dialog launcher, lo and behold, there's not two types of underlines, there's 4 types of underlines. Single accounting and double accounting. And remembering from Accounting 101, I know what those do. The single accounting after each subtotal and the double accounting at the bottom. But when you have text like this and you choose single accounting, that is an amazing format that does exactly what my manager wanted. It underlines the whole thing, even if it's just 4 characters date, but it leaves a tiny little gap at the end, right? So if you happen to be working for that person who's putting those tiny little columns in between the columns to get the underlines to work right, just remember single accounting, single accounting underlines will solve that problem. All right, so no blank rows, no blank columns. My other rule, every heading has to be on a single row, right? I had another manager, different guy. He was the guy who bought Improv, Lotus Improv. First guy to show me pivot tables. He wouldn't call this profit, he would call it gross profit, and he'd put it on 2 lines like that. That confuses Excel. Excel can't deal with 2 lines of headings. So what we do instead is create a cell that's double high, type the first word, gross, and then the magic keystroke, Alt, Enter, and profit, Alt, gross profit. That creates one cell, basically turns on wrap text, but it lets you control where the words wrap, so slightly better. I live down here in the east coast of Florida, Cape Canaveral. Rockets launch just 13 miles that way. But 10 years ago, I was down in Miami, outside of Miami, tiny little company, 12 people. They had me down for a seminar. And at the break, someone said, hey, can I show you something on my computer? So we walked back to her cubicle and she's opening the file to ask me some Excel question. I don't even remember what that Excel question was, but I remember this. I'm looking around her cube to see what the sticky notes are, right? Because the sticky notes tell you a lot about a person. I'll tell you, in my cube, I had 2 sticky notes. The first one was how to use index and match, because it was something I used, I don't know, 6 times a year. I can never remember how it worked. So that was one of the sticky notes on my wall. And this lady, this wonderful lady, I don't remember the exact words, but it went something like this. There were some words. And then after those words, a bunch of tiny little underlines with the parentheses that said 22. And that meant type the space bar 22 times. Then some more words, and then a 14. And then something probably kind of short like that, all right? And this wonderful lady had figured out that if she typed that many spaces between the words and turned on wrap text, oh, it didn't work, and turned on wrap text, it would all line up correctly, all right? And I said, that is awesome that you took the time to figure out how many spaces you have to type to get it to work. But let me show you Alt, Enter, and life, will be so much easier. All right, so 3 simple rules: no blank rows and no blank columns, single row of headings, and And I guess that's the only rule. There's another rule, I forget it. If you have titles up here, so XYZ company, make sure to leave a blank row between those titles and your data. So that way, basically, if you press Control asterisk, it should select your headings at the top and everything else. Control asterisk is select current region. All right, so here, let's create our first pivot table. I know most of you already know pivot tables, but we have to get started somehow to have a pivot table to change. All right, so your manager comes to you and says he wants to see total revenue by region and product. Total revenue by region and product. I can create that pivot table in 6 clicks. And the first click, by the way, is to go to the Insert tab. Second click is Pivot Table. If I would add that to my Quick Access toolbar, then I can do this in 5 clicks. So Insert, Pivot Table. They detect the edge of the data. Be careful here. This dialog box is changing almost weekly. If you're in Microsoft 365, the Insiders channel, it's getting taller and shorter. It's really bizarre. They're doing some what they call A/B testing. So this is shorter than usual, but it still has the important stuff. Where's your data? Where do you want to go? New worksheet. To be honest with you, I always go out there to column K, but today I need to be able to delete this quickly, so I'm going to let it go to a new worksheet. Plus, if I had to choose an existing worksheet, I couldn't do it in 6 clicks. We'll talk later about this box, add this data to the data model. That sentence, that's the most underwhelming sentence in Excel. You won't believe how much power you get when you click that box. They made it sound really boring, so no one would click it. There's a story behind that. We'll get to that. All right, so click number 3, OK. We're taken to a brand new worksheet that's inserted to the left of the data. On the left-hand side, we have a blank box that's going to become the pivot table. Over here on the right-hand side, oh, and yours doesn't start like this. Yours starts like this. At the top, we have a list of fields: region, product, date, sector, customer, quantity, revenue, cost of goods sold, and profit. Down at the bottom, 4 drop zones. Top left one is called filters. That's really old. I'm not going to use that a lot today. The important one, though, is at the top right. Columns, bottom left is rows, and values. Now I'm going to get some pushback in this group. I just know that, but I desperately believe that those icons down there are incorrect. All right, if you look at the columns icon, it has highlighted the first column and then has a bunch of unhighlighted things. And if you look at the rows icon, it's highlighted the top row and then a bunch of things below that. But if you drop something in the rows area, it doesn't go to that dark area. It goes here. It goes to the down the side. Right, and I'm convinced that when they created these icons in 2007, it must have been a summer intern, and they created them incorrectly. I pitched this to Howie Dickerman, who's in charge of pivot tables now at Microsoft, and he squints at it and he says, yeah, you're probably right, it's probably wrong, but I don't think they're ever going to fix it. Just gives me something to complain about. My favorite story here, and I was in Wisconsin, right? It was farmland, and someone came up to me and said, no, you don't understand this. This is right. That's a garden hose, right? That's the nozzle of a garden hose, and it's squirting the data across the columns. That's why it looks like that. And this is a garden hose pointing down, and it's squirting data down the left-hand side. And I'm like, all right, that works for you. That's great. So anyway, we're 3 clicks in, by the way. Insert, pivot table, OK. Manager wants to see total revenue by region and product. So click number 4 is choose region. Click number 5, choose revenue. All right, we're down to the last click. And this one's not going to be a click, it's going to be a drag. If I would just choose product, it would go to the inner row field. So I have to take product and drag it down to the columns area like that. All right, there you go. Sum of revenue, top left-hand corner. That's the weirdest name I've ever seen. Sum of revenue. Sounds like you're a mathematician or something like that. Down the left-hand side are 3 regions, East, Central, and the West. Across the top are products. Super annoying, even if my original data had been formatted as currency, this is never formatted. It always comes in general. The fast way to fix this, right click and number format. There's other ways. You can go into field settings and choose number format there. You can even choose all of your data, including the grand totals. You have to include the grand totals and then go to the home tab and just use any of your favorite formatting schemes. I'm just going to use number. I don't need the currency symbol, thousands separated, no decimal places. That works for this data that's $6.7 million. Kind of annoying that there's no way to control that. All right, print this out. By the way, I really don't like summer revenue. We can call that anything we want up there. Like I can call it total revenue. You can just type a new title for it up there, total revenue. But I can't call it the one thing that I really want to call it. I could call it sales, that's fine. But what I really want to call it is revenue. When I try and call it revenue, no deal. That field already exists. All right, so there's an awesome workaround, and I hear you shouting it already. Even though you're on mute, I can still hear you. Revenue space that space, and you're home free, right? So take that, Microsoft. You don't want us to call it revenue? Well, we got to work around for you. All right, print this out, give it to your manager, and your manager gives you one of these. That's not what I wanted. I wanted products down the side and regions across the top. Go redo it. And before pivot tables, this would have been a horrible 15-minute process. An advanced filter unique to get the list of regions. Another advanced filter unique to get the list of products, and then transpose that. In the top left-hand corner, an @dsum. Yeah, I said @ because the last time I did it was Lotus 1, 2, 3. And then a /data table 2, which we still have here. Data, what if analysis, data table, still in Excel, 30 years after I last had to use one to do a pivot table. You know, but now when the manager says move things around, well, you're back to square one. This is so easy. You just look at your manager sincerely. Look at your manager sincerely and say, I'll be back in 15 minutes. And then it's 3 simple steps from there. Step number 1, take the product field, and we're going to drag it from columns and drop it in rows like that. See, now we have product going down the side. Step number 2, take the region field, drag region from rows and drop it in columns. All right. And then step number 3, especially if your manager doesn't do pivot tables, do something else for 14 minutes. We got to mute someone. Someone needs to be muted. There we are. All right. Do something else for 14 minutes. That's the beautiful thing about pivot tables.
Bill, sorry, I muted you. You need to unmute yourself. Sorry.
Hello?
Bill?
I'm back.
Sorry, I did mute all because of other people who were unmuted, and I muted you as well. Sorry about that.
There were no good jokes during me being muted. That's fine.
So okay.
We're great. All right. That action, the pivot, the word pivot table is what we just did there. We took the regions from down the side and moved it across the top. Okay. Print this out. You give it to your manager, and your manager says, oh, instead of products, I want sectors. Super easy. Uncheck product, choose sector, and you can change the data very, very easily. Some other magic with pivot tables is if your manager says, well, wait a second, who's our energy customer in the West? That doesn't seem right. Any number in this pivot table, you can just double click and you will drill down. So right now I'm on a sheet called sheet 2. If I double click on the 159,000, I get a brand new sheet to the left of sheet 2 called sheet 3, and it has all of the records that make up that 159,000. If I look down here in the status bar, 159,088. One tip I got from doing a seminar, someone said, oh yeah, if you keep zooming in, drilling down, if you keep drilling down, you'll have 100 sheets out there to the left. Just Control Z, Control Z, and it will get rid of that sheet. So you can drill down. There's the 761,000, Control Z, undo, and you can go back. Or you can leave them there. Your call. Doesn't matter. Either way. All right, so the ability to drill down in a pivot table is cool. You'll also notice here that my pivot table is going east, central, and west instead of having central first, which is how it would be alphabetically. And I control that through a feature in Excel called Custom Lists. If we go to File, Options, Advanced, in Advanced, this is so long, to scroll all the way to the bottom and you'll see Edit Custom Lists. And anything in a custom list will control the order of your pivot table. So right there, that custom list of East, Central, West controls the order for this. Every once in a while, not every seminar, every 10th seminar, I get someone who's just banging their head against the table and say, we got one of our employees comes to the top of the pivot table every single time. And her name doesn't start with A. And I just stop her right there. I say, I know exactly who you're talking about. It's Jan. And you're like, how'd you know? Because there's a custom list. Every computer has a custom list with Jan at the beginning, and that forces Jan to be at the top, right? So if some items are in the custom list, they go to the top. The people who aren't, they go to the bottom. So Jan or May, one of those two. And they're like, well, what's the solution? I said, well, just fire her. All right, let her go somewhere else. Or tell her you can change your name. Either one. There's a setting somewhere that you can probably turn that off. That's less hostile, I guess, than firing her. All right, so there's our pivot table sectors down the side and regions across the top. I'm gonna show off here. I'm gonna take my product field and drag it into the pivot table, and I bet your pivot table is not doing this. My pivot table has sectors in column A and products in column B, but ever since Excel 2007, we've had this horrible feature called show in compact form. This started happening in Excel 2007. I hate this feature. You're mixing two different types of data in the same column. If I would add customer, and now I have three different types of data there. There's no way I can ever use this in the future. Super, super annoying. And right after this came out, right after Excel 2007 came out, there was a Excel Summit. And one of the sessions that year was Alon Gallard, who was in charge of pivot tables at the time, was going to show us the new pivot table things. And, you know, this was rude of me. I was young. I wasn't, I don't know. I feel bad now. I went up to Alon while he's getting ready to present. I said, Alon, that compact layout. He's like, yes. I should have read his body language. Yes. Worst thing I've ever seen. Yeah, Alon never spoke to me again after that. But the great news is Alon left Microsoft and he works over across town at Tableau now. And so I was nicer the next time. Some of you will recognize these names, Ben Ramson and Carlos and Ash. Every year at the Excel Summit, I would go up and I'd say, you know, hey, this new compact layout you guys created, yeah, it's super clever, but I keep finding just 10% of the room, 10% of the room who really likes tabular form. Could you just give us a checkbox somewhere that would let us say all future pivot tables start in tabular form? I said, I know they're weird people, but do the math. 750 million people using Excel, 10%, that's 75 million people who just are dying for this checkbox. Right, and each year they would say, no, yeah, we haven't done it. We hear you. It was the 5th year, Ash, he saw me coming. He's like, oh, you're going to ask for a checkbox about compact layout. He says, Bill, you're the only person who ever asked us about this. No one really cares. And I'm like, no, I know people care. So he sent me out that day to a website called excel.uservoice.com. Right, he said, go write up your idea and see if anyone will vote for it. He says, if you get 20 votes, we'll think about it. I said, 20 votes? You don't understand. I run MrExcel. I have, you know, hundreds of thousands of people coming to my site. I'll be back tomorrow with 20 votes. And sure enough, the next day I was back with 100 votes. He said, well, we're not going to do it yet. I said, how many votes do you need? He said, I don't know, just keep getting votes. And I'll tell you how many votes I needed. I needed 221. At 221, they called me and they said, all right, we're going to do your idea, but we don't think your idea is broad enough. There's other things that people want to change. What if we could let them control everything? All right, so the next year, 2017, for Microsoft 365, they gave us this awesome thing, File Options. Here's how to tell if you have it. Along the left-hand side, if you have this brand new category called Data, then you're going to have it. They added this category just for this button and some other stuff they moved there as filler called Edit Default Layout. Oh, this is awesome because I can say I always want to start in tabular form instead of compact form. That was my request. And I always turn on repeat all item labels. That's what fills in these words communications here. I go into pivot table options and I say for empty cells, show 0. Every single time I created a pivot table, my 6 clicks, I then went through 16 clicks to do all of this stuff to make it look right. Now I can just do it. And I run into people who, well, there it is, use custom lists while sorting. You can turn that off. Auto-fit column widths on updates. I get a lot of people who turn that off. And I still get people who love classic pivot table layout. You can turn that on where you can drag fields from the field well, that's called the field well, right into the grid, right? So no matter what things drive you crazy about pivot tables, you can come in here and control, make sure that all future pivot tables start in tabular form with that data turned on the left-hand side. The other one, and I got this from Howie. Howie is now the manager of pivot tables, and I like Howie. Well, first off, because he's in charge of my favorite feature, so I have to be nice to Howie and have a great relationship with Howie. But Howie, he said, I don't think that this was the right way to do this with the 4 drop zones at the bottom and the field list at the top. And Howie suggests that everyone should go to field section in areas side by side, because then if you have 20 fields, you get to see all the fields. These drop zones are the same size. And I agree with Howie. I've started building my pivot tables like this as well. So change it once and it'll stay forever. Provided Excel doesn't crash on you, then you're good to go. Good to go. All right, here we go. So we have a pivot table. We're going to move on to my next. Oh wait, hang on. There's one more thing. Let me show you one crazy thing that came along just recently. I have no idea how this works or why they did it. All right. If let's say that you created a pivot table and your manager is in charge of West Coast DEF, that's his thing, right? And this report is for him. You can now go in and say format cells, and change the color of that one cell. So West Coast DEF is going to be orange. And if I would rearrange the pivot table, products down the side, regions across the top, that orange moves. And if I would do something to increase the pivot table, so I'll take, let's put sector underneath region, and we come down here, look at that. All of those cells that are West Coast DEF are now orange. Where are they storing that? I can't imagine where in the object model that data is living, right? And I can't imagine why I would ever do it, but it's there, and I'm the collector of all weird things in Excel, so I'm passing it on to you. Thanks for coming by for that one little trick there, so that the format one cell in a pivot table. When you download the book or the excerpt of the book, that's on page 77. Go check that one out. Just kind of wild that works. All right. So far, every single pivot table that I've created has just been summing the revenue. By the way, another thing that they quietly slipped in there, it used to be that you would sometimes get a count instead of a sum. And anytime that people ask me about that, I'm going to delete this pivot table. Anytime people would ask me about that, I say, all right, it's one of two things. Either your data has a couple of blank cells in the revenue column, or some very wise person taught you that rather than choose one cell in your data, you should choose all of your data like this. And I get it. I understand why you're doing that, because when you add more data to the bottom, then you can refresh the pivot table and you don't have to respecify. I completely understand why you're doing that. But the problem is here, you're selecting 500 rows of revenue, numeric revenue, and 1,000,000 rows of blank cells. And those blank cells are causing Excel to give you a count instead of a sum. All right, I had a couple of seminars. I remember it was Atlanta and Nashville, back to back. I was in Atlanta the first day. Someone asked me that question, and I know exactly how to demo this. Just remove that cell right there. Insert, pivot table. OK, customer, choose revenue. I'm going to get a count instead of a sum. Right there, count instead of a sum. That day in Atlanta, holy smokes, I got a sum. How did that happen? That's not supposed to happen. That's been broke for 20 years. I did it again. But then I went on and talked about Excel for another 7 hours and drove to Nashville. And the next day, same question. Exact same thing happens. It's not giving me a count anymore. I couldn't wait to get back home, and I wrote to Ash. I said, Ash, what happened? This has been broken for 20 years. It's not broken anymore. Ash is like, we didn't change anything. I said, Ash, I do the exact same example. 35 times a year. It's changed. He said, well, let me check around. He writes back a week later. He says, yeah, someone wrote in a letter, like got a pen and a piece of paper and wrote a letter and said, hey, this seems like a bug. And they fixed it. They didn't need 220 votes on excel.uservoice.com. One guy wrote a letter. I'm like, holy smokes, this has been annoying me forever, right? So if that ever used to annoy you, it doesn't annoy you anymore because they fixed it. How cool is that? All right, now, it's fake data, but I really need to go back and improve the integrity of my data here. I'm going to take that 22810 and put it back in. One wild thing about pivot tables is they do not recalculate automatically. That Cummins engine did not change until I come in here and refresh the data. All right, so I'm going to click refresh, and that 599984 will change to get the extra 22,000. One of the weird things about pivot tables is they don't automatically update. All right, so I have customer, sum of revenue. I'm going to take revenue and add to this pivot table a bunch of times, like this. 2, 3, I don't know, 4, maybe 4. I'm only doing that because so many of you use pivot tables all the time. All right, so the first one we're going to leave as sum of revenue, although I might call it sales or revenue or something like that. That second one, I'm going to double click. Double clicking the header takes you into field settings. I used to go into field settings all the time, but double clicking the header gets you there. All right, and on the first tab, if you're ever in a bar with me, you could probably win a pint if you can name those 11 functions along the left-hand side: sum, count, average, max, min, standard deviation P, variance P, product, that's the one that everyone forgets, and something called index. Oh, no, that wasn't even. I owe you all a beer. All right. I never use any of these. It's the ones they show you first. They're not the good ones. The good ones are on the second tab. It's called show values as. This is all the really good stuff. Like, for example, percentage of column total. I mean, this is such a standard thing, percentage of total like that. Choose OK. And now for each customer, we get to see what percentage of the total they are. Boy, I really don't need that many decimal places. Number format, 1 decimal place will be fine. Thank you. All right. Over here, double click the header. I'm going to change this to be a rank. And you can either rank largest to smallest or smallest to largest, so you can see who your largest customer was. So number 1 right down there is Walmart. And then, oh, I should have renamed that. I forgot to rename it in the field settings. I can just type a new heading here, rank, that works fine. And then the 4th one, what should we do here? Percentage of parent total is sort of new, 2010, only 11 years old, but you know, it's one of the newer things. How about a running total? Running total in. Probably doesn't make so much sense with those customers over there, but if you had dates, it would make sense, all right? So be aware of that second tab of the field settings, all kinds of really, really great stuff. Of course, pivot tables start out alphabetical unless you have a custom list. You can rearrange things here, but there's easy ways to rearrange things. If you wanted the largest customers at the top, just choose one cell in the sales column and data, click Z to A to sort descending, and you get the largest customers at the top. This is really wild, just amazing that this works. You see Bank United is down here, 406,326. I hate to even show this to most people because they'll think that Excel would do this all the time. It only does it in pivot tables. If I go up to ABC stores and I type Bank United, when I press enter, those two numbers are going to switch. The 406 is going to jump up here to B4, right? Bam, look at that. You can just rearrange a pivot table by simply typing where you want something to go, or you can drag something. So if you wanted ABC stores, it's really hard to get the drag point right there. You can drag it to a new spot, right? So you can rearrange your pivot tables like that without setting up a custom list at all. Kind of cool. All right. But what I'm really talking about here, what I'm trying to show you is how to create a top 10 report. I used to, report data for a company that would have 20 pages of customers every month, but it was only 10 deals. The 10 deals, the big deals where we're shipping out a lot of equipment, that was most of the revenue, maybe 20, 10 or 20. And if I gave the VP of sales 20 pages, would never get read. But if I gave him just the top 20 customers, he'd love that report. All right, now before I do this, I want to come down here to the bottom and point out that we have $6.7 million of revenue, and that Walmart, our largest customer, is 13% in that total. I'm just going to say those numbers 2 or 3 times so we remember. $6.7 million, and Walmart is 13%. In a live room, I had a whiteboard right there. I'd write it on the whiteboard. No whiteboard here, sorry. So 6.7 million and 13%, I think I can remember that. Now, what I want to do is I want to create a top 10 report. So I come into the customer, go to value filters. And down here at the bottom, we have something called top 10. Top 10. It says top 10, but it is so powerful, so powerful. It doesn't have to be top, it can be top or bottom. So you can find the best performing or the worst performing. It doesn't have to be 10, it can be 5, it can be 7, it can be 80. And here, top 5 items, give me the top 80%, or give me enough records to get to $5 million. Be careful, if you're going to get to $5 million, you don't want to use the spin button to get there. You could actually just click in there and type. All right, top 5 items based on sales. Click OK. All right, and sure enough, there it is, Walmart. You can just look at the rank, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're gold. That's exactly what we wanted. Print this out, give it to my manager. He looks at the last row and he has a heart attack because he knows he didn't do 3.5 million, he did 6.7 million. He at least knew it was close to 7. He's a salesman, he rounds it to, I did 7 million, he would say. And look at Walmart. Walmart should be 13% of that total, but now they're 24% of that total. This would freak my manager out. I couldn't give him this. I'd have to white out that last row or hide it or something, right? What I really need is that grand total to say the total of everybody. There's a setting. There's a setting. It's back here on the Design tab on the far left-hand side under Subtotals. It's the 4th item down here. It's called Include Filtered Items and Totals. It's grayed out. I remember the day that got grayed out. It was January 30th, 2007. Every day I open Excel, and the first thing I do when I have a pivot table is I come here to see if they've put this back in. I have to tell you, having a feature in there and having it grayed out is worse than not having the feature at all. That means we were this close. It was probably in the beta, and for some reason, they backed out at the last minute. I'm sure that person knew that in 60 days they would come back and turn that feature back on, light that feature back up. But then after Excel 2007 shipped, it was the introduction of the ribbon. Everyone was super stressed. Everyone was just reassigned. People left. They left the Excel team. They went to PowerPoint or Word. What's that? Oh, it's some freeware you get. You buy Excel, they throw in PowerPoint and Word. You should try them. They're cool. It's for people who can't type their letters in Excel. And the person in charge of this isn't on the Excel team anymore. I don't know who it is. If I would ever get them to turn this back on, oh man, my life would be so, so good, because then I could create this report properly the way that my manager, who I've been working for a while, really wants it to be. So I was doing this seminar in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, this half-day seminar, and right at this point, a young man, couldn't have been more than 25, he stops me and he says, hang on a second, I got a way to do that. Now this happens every single time I do the seminar. Someone in that room shows me something I've never seen in Excel. This guy's name was Dan from Philadelphia. Dan from Philadelphia says, all right, here's what you got to do. You're using the new filters, the filters in pivot tables. You need to go old school. Use the filters back on the data tab. I'm like, well, Dan, those are grayed out too. You can't filter a pivot table. He says, yeah, that's what most people think. All right, and then Dan proceeds to school me in how to filter data, right? If I have this original data set and I need to filter, I choose one cell and I click the filter icons and I'm done. I know some people do the whole thing with Control Asterisk and then do the filter. Some people do Control Shift L. Some people do Control T. Lots of different ways to filter, but Dan had a fifth way. He says, no matter what your data set looks like, just go to the heading row and go to the very last heading. In this case, it's profit in I1, and go one cell to the right of that. He says, from that cell, now I've started calling this the magic cell. The magic cell, for some weird reason, from the magic cell, I can filter the adjacent data. It doesn't filter J1, it filters everything to the left. All right, now that in and of itself is not a good trick. No one cares about that trick because there's other good ways to filter. Even at your accounting Christmas party, no one cares about this trick. All right, but here's why this is super important. Someone on the Excel team has decided it's against the rules for us to filter a pivot table, right? And frankly, I hope no one on the Excel team is here. They're being jerks about it. I mean, look, if I come out here into the nothingness, I'm more than welcome to filter. But as soon as I touch that pivot table, no filtering for you, right? So here, yeah, sure, filter. Here, you can't. All right, so here's Dan's trick. He says, look at your headings. Look at your headings. Hang on a second. Hey, Marielle. Bella. Hey, Bella. Thanks. Everyone say hi to Mrs. Excel. Wave. Hello. All right.
Hello, nice to see you.
Yeah, thanks. Dan's trick. Remember the magic cell? When I go to the magic cell, the person on the Excel team who's in charge of graying out the filter doesn't know that from the magic cell, I can apply filters to the top row of that table, right? And from the magic cell, when I turn on filter like that, look at that. For the first time in my life, I've actually turned on a filter into the other columns in the pivot table, right? And now I can do a top 10 from sales, number filter, top 10. And instead of showing the top 5, I'm gonna ask for the top 6. The top 6, because to this filter is not as smart as the pivot table filters. The grand total is the largest item, right? And so now I have a report, 6.7 million, the grand total is correct. The 13% for Walmart is correct. Dan in Philadelphia. I've used this trick thousands of times. I've told this trick to thousands of people. I don't have a selfie with Dan. I don't even have Dan's last name. Like Dan changed my life in those 3.5 hours with this trick. So fast forward 2 years ago, 2018, I'm in Cincinnati. At the University of Cincinnati, it was a long row. There were like 40 people in the long room, 40 people in the room. And I have a prize for the first person who shows me up in any seminar. And there's a guy in the back. And by 10 a.m., he's already broken the record. He's like, give me 5 new tricks in the first hour and a half. And when I got to pivot tables, I didn't even get to tell this story. He knew it. He knew it right away. And when he wins the prize the first time, I ask people, I say, hey, that's great. You know, what's your name? You know, it's Joe or Fred or whatever, right? And I always make a joke like, you know, if you want this prize, Joe will be selling it on eBay tonight, right? Well, this guy's name is Dan, right? And when Dan gave me this trick, I look at Dan and I try and age the old Dan 20 years and it's got to be the same guy. I'm like, oh my God, are you Dan? Were you in Philadelphia 20 years ago at my seminar? He says he wasn't. But how could it not be him? There's only 2 people in the world who ever knew this trick. And they're both named Dan. It's got to be the same guy. All right, so auto filtering a pivot table is not illegal. You just have to do it from the magic cell right there. All right, that gets us the true top 10 report. Let's move on to some other cool tricks that I have here with pivot tables. I didn't really cover it in my when I started, but my underlying data is 2 years worth of data. So I have the daily dates here in column C. They start January 1st of 2020 and it goes through the end of 2021. So I have 2 years worth of data, and I want to do a year-over-year report, and Excel is awesome at grouping daily dates up to months, quarters, and years, particularly if your fiscal year ends December 31st. If it's anything else, then we got to use the data model and a date table. But for just regular data like this, we're going to be in great shape. So one cell, insert, pivot table, click OK. Dates down the left-hand side, and revenue. Maybe customer down the left-hand side as well, although that's going to be really long. Sure, customer first. All right. Now I want to take those daily dates and I want to roll them up. So I'm going to choose one cell, any one cell in the date column. It could be the date heading, it could be any one of the dates. And here on the Pivot Table Analyze tab, we have something called Group Field. And because that's a date column, they offer me seconds, minutes, hours, days, months, quarters, or years. All right, so I'm going to choose months and years. It's super important to choose years because here with 2 years worth of data, if you only chose months, they would give you January of last year and January of this year and just call it January, which is, I guess, good if you're doing seasonality analysis, but not good any other time. So we choose months and years, click OK. And they now give me by date, by month, and year. And what's really cool is they've made it be two separate fields, which means that I can take the years field and pivot it. I mean, that's a virtual field. That's not in my data. They've created that in the cache, in the pivot table cache. When we create a pivot table, they take all the data on the grid and they move it up into the cache. That's why we have to click refresh, but it's also why pivot tables are so darn fast. So I take the years field from rows to columns like that, and I have January 2020, 2021, and a grand total. I really don't want the grand total out there. I'm going to right click, remove grand total. What I really want out there is variance. I want to see, are we up, are we down, up or down? And I understand there's a way to do this inside the pivot table. It's weird, you have to hide a column, and I'm going to pretend like I don't know that method right now. I'm going to do it the way that most people do it. I'm going to say here percentage change, and that formula right there in D5 is going to be C5 divided by B5 minus 1. Formula that in accounting we did all the time. But here's the problem. Ever since Excel 2002, with no explanation, this started happening. Equal sign. I don't use the mouse to build my formulas. I don't type my formulas. I use the arrow keys. So left arrow key to point to C5, divided by. Left arrow key twice to point to B5, minus 1. C5 divided by B5 minus 1. I could do that without even looking at the screen. If I didn't look at the screen, I wouldn't see this horrible thing that happened. And that's right, that's 6.1%. I'll change it to a percentage and number. And when I double click to copy that down, somehow we're up 6.1486% every month. And we're not. I mean, if you grab a 10 key and check that, it's not 6.146%. It's just flat out wrong. All right. And this is the get pivot table bug. Ever since Excel 2002, when we use the mouse or the arrow keys to point to a cell inside the pivot table, and we're building a formula outside the pivot table, they do this to us, right? And if I've had 5,000 people ask me about GetPivotData, 4,995 of them have said, how do we make this stop, right? It's super annoying, right? And my quick and dirty way is just type C5 divided by B5 minus 1. That creates a formula that you can easily copy. Or come back inside the pivot table, go to Pivot Table Analyze. Over in the left-hand side, there's an options button. Don't choose the options button, but the tiny drop down next to options, open that, and there's a setting for generate get pivot data. That's also an Excel option somewhere. File, options, data, probably. Turn that off once, and it will never happen to you again. All right, so if you hate get pivot data, you can turn it off, and your life will be great from there on out. Okay, so that's grouping daily dates. Grouping daily dates. To ungroup those, come back here and ungroup daily dates. Remember, 20 years ago, I was driving through St. Louis in a rental car, driving through St. Louis. I get a phone call. Don't yell at me. It was before they told you not to talk and drive at the same time. Guy from Mexico. Somehow he found my number. He says, hey, I'm creating a pivot table. I need a group by week. And I'm thinking about that group field. It's seconds, minutes, hours, days, months, quarters, years. There's no week there. I'm like, oh, sorry. I don't think you can do it. All right. But it turns out you can. Go into group field, and sure enough, seconds, minutes, hours, days, months, quarters, years. What you have to do is unchoose months, choose just days. And when you choose only days, this spin button for number of days becomes enabled. It's been down there, grayed out. You don't even notice that it's down there. The only way to get it to be enabled is just choose days. And then you have to go look at the calendar. January 1st of 2020, was it a Wednesday? Right? And if it was, then you want to go back to start on the previous Monday. So that would be 12/30 of 2019. Otherwise, your weeks are going to go Wednesday through Tuesday. Click OK, and you'll have weekly data out there on the left-hand side. Payroll, 14-day periods. But some people have that weird calendar where you have 13 months and each month is 28 days. Just roll out to 28-day periods. Other people, the 4-4-5 calendar. That grouping dialog can't deal with that. So sorry if that's you. There's no good way to do that. All right, there we are. So that's a year-over-year report and how to turn off GetPivotData. All right, now we're moving on to what I call more cool tricks about pivot tables. The first one, this came to me from Celia from Santa Monica, California. Celia showed up at my seminar one time. And we were, must have been talking about filters or something like that. So you take the customer field, drag it over here to filters, and you could show this report for a single customer. So I could choose Walmart, for example, and just see the Walmart sales. Click OK, and I'm just going on about this filters talking, and it was funny. Celia brought a copy of my book, Pivot Table Data Crunching, to the seminar, and I saw that, and me, just human nature. I'm like, oh, that's so cool. She wants an autograph. No, that wasn't why she was there. At this point, Celia, she points to the book. She's like, make that pivot table for every single customer. Like, what? Yeah, make that pivot table for every single customer. I'm like, well, can I do it after lunch? I'm gonna have to write a macro. And she's like, I knew it. You don't know the trick. I'm like, Celia, calm down. What trick? And she proceeds to show me this next trick. She's like, it's not in the book. I read every page of the book. You don't know this trick. Sylvia had flown from Santa Monica, California to Akron, Ohio, which is 2,800 miles, just to tell me that I didn't know this trick. And allegedly her grandmother lives up the road, but whatever. All right, so here's this awesome trick from Sylvia. I have data here, customers up in the filter area. I leave it at all. Create the perfect pivot table. Make sure that you do all of your number formatting and anything else you would want to do before you do this trick, because you're about to make, in my case, 27 copies of this workbook. All right, so here's the perfect pivot table. On the Pivot Table Analyze tab, again, that Options button, don't click the button, click the little drop down. And here is something called Show Report Filter Pages. I think it's also in the right-click menu if you click at the right spot. Show Report Filter Pages. Every time I went here, it was grayed out because I never used the filter. It's only there when there's something up in the filter and it says show all pages of customer. Check this out down at the bottom. I'm on sheet 6. When I click OK, it's going to take 10 seconds. They have now inserted 27 new sheets in my workbook. On each sheet down in here at the bottom, it says ABC Stores. So if the customer name is a valid sheet name, it'll rename it and it chooses it from the list. There's ABC Stores, there's AT&T, there's Bank United, there's Boeing, there's Citigroup, there's Compaq, there's Cummins Inc., and so on. What an awesome trick there. So shout out to Sylvia. You'll see Sylvia sometimes on Excel TV, excel.tv. So thanks, Sylvia, for that awesome trick. Replicate a pivot table for each customer, of course, in the book that you can download. All right, here's another one, a great use for pivot tables to compare lists. Now this is one where I would normally get to talk about VLOOKUP or XLOOKUP if I have to compare lists, but it's even worse because I have 3 lists that I have to compare, right? So you're usually, you're doing a VLOOKUP from the first list and a VLOOKUP from the second list to figure out what's missing from the first list and combining everything. This is so easy. If I just want a super list of, if I want to see, who popped in each day, who left each day, if their number changed or anything like that. So I take the data from Monday and I copy that, and I'm going to paste it over here with a new field that's called where. Where is what I call it, as in where did this come from? And over here I'll type Monday, and I take the Tuesday data, copy. paste it below the first data set, and this will all say Tuesday, came from the second list. And then Wednesday, take the Wednesday data. Paste that at the bottom. Wednesday. Look, if this was one of those 8-hour all-day seminars where they're there to get their CEU so they can renew their license, I would drag them through the hellish pain of doing the VLOOKUPs, you know, and it would just take forever. But you get it. You know how the VLOOKUPs or XLOOKUPs would have worked. Now I have this new list, insert pivot table. I'm going to let it go to an existing worksheet right on here on the right-hand side so we can see it all. And what I'm going to do is name down the left-hand side their answer, the RSVP in the values area. And then the thing that makes it all work is take the where field, which list did it come from, and drag it to columns, right? We don't need the grand total here. Right click, remove grand total. And now for every person, I can see what their answer was on Monday, what their answer was on Tuesday, what their answer was on Wednesday. Actually, first time in my life I ever regret this setting. For empty cell show 0. I want to turn that off. For empty cell show blank. And then I can see, all right, Andrew didn't answer on Monday, but on Tuesday he was at 3 and Wednesday at 3. Caroline was there Monday, but by Wednesday she had dropped out of the list. All right, so isn't that a cool use for pivot tables? All right, we got to talk about the data model. But let's do a pivot table on a map. Pivot table on a map. So what I have here at 2:40 this afternoon, Air Canada Flight 121 took off from Pearson International Airport there in Toronto, and they were bound for Vancouver. A few minutes before this seminar started, they'd gotten about halfway across the country. By now, they're probably pretty close, but my Power Query is refusing to refresh, and we don't have time to fix that. But what I found that I could do is I could just take the data from Power Query, copy the entire table, and paste it to Excel. What a horrible experience that was. But anyway, what I have here is I have from flight stats, each minute of the flight, the latitude, longitude, the speed of the aircraft, and the altitude in feet. I'm sorry, I should have converted that to meters for you. And then out here, this column F is called the ding column. The ding column. I used to fly a lot, and I'd always fly Southwest. And for the first 10,000 feet, from takeoff to 10,000 feet, you're not allowed to use your electronic equipment, which was just hell, right? Those first few minutes of the flight, you were forced to read the in-flight magazine or something like that, right? So I could not wait for the ding. Right at the ding, that means we were at 10,000 feet. I didn't wait for the announcement. As soon as you heard the ding, you knew you were at 10,000 feet. So I have a little formula here that if we're less than 10,000 feet, it's called boring. Otherwise, it's called laptop, right? And I want to know what's going on in Toronto today because this aircraft was not at 10,000 feet for the first 12 minutes of flight, which is insane. I would have, I don't know. Southwest can get up above 10,000 feet out of Orlando in 5 minutes. It's the fifth minute I get the ding. That has nothing to do with Excel. It's just my own personal hell. All right, insert 3D map. This was originally called Power Map. In Excel 2013, it wasn't there, but in the service pack, it was there. They called it Power Map for the first version. Then Excel 2016, they changed it to 3D Map or 3D Maps. Changes its name all the time. You'll still hear me calling it Power Map, but it really means 3D Map. All right, and it lets us create a pivot table on a map. So here, let's get rid of a few things. So we have our data with latitude and longitude, and I'm going to make this a little bit better. I'm going to take the altitude as the height there. And let's see how far they got. They were just above Thunder Bay when I first downloaded the data. All right, they're kind of above North Dakota, almost at Saskatchewan. Still have a long way to go. And then for the color, the category, I'm going to take my ding field. So, right, that blue is no laptops, and then the orange. All right, but this is just awesome. This awesome little tool here because we can zoom right in. I'm going to zoom. And because I changed the theme from the boring white theme to the second theme. I don't know what it's called. It's just the good one, the Arial color theme. All right, so there's the first bit of data from that flight. They were at 900 feet, still hadn't reached 10,000 feet. At minute number 2, they're at 1550. At minute number 3, 2125. And you can zoom right in. This was runway 06L, so six, whatever it is, that runway right there. They took off there. and you can watch. You can watch where it went. It went out about 6 minutes, and then made the turn towards Vancouver. I always turn on the map labels. They're not on by default, so you don't know what you're looking at. Turn on the map labels, and you can see exactly what's going on. There, we finally got above 10,000 feet. There must be some rule. Either it was weather, or there must be some rule that they can't. They have to fly below some level until they get out here. You know, if you're actually on this flight, yeah, someone just came in and they're unmuted. If you're actually on this flight, it's pretty wild. You can look out the window and you know, see where you are, and get it, right? So that's Power Map. I have a lot of different Power Map examples. There's one in the book. It's a real estate example. It's all just based on a neighborhood over 70 years. That's how I found this house that I'm sitting in right now. This is so weird. I've never done this seminar from this house ever. For the last 10 years, I've lived a mile, a couple of kilometers that way. And I always did a story about this neighborhood, right? And I always looked at this house in that story in the seminar. In fact, there's a video out on YouTube where living down there, I talked about this house up here, and I made a joke, you know, about this neighborhood and the newer neighborhood, and I'll be darned, I'm now living in this house. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy, surreal that little story in my seminar. It was just a random house that I picked. There were like 2 random houses I picked. I talked about it, and next thing I know, Mary Ellen boats by here, and she's like, "Oh, hey, your house is for sale." I'm like, "Huh? What?" Yeah, and I remember saying, "We should go look. It can't hurt to look." It did, because here we are. We bought it. Crazy. That's just surreal. All right. Anyway, so pivot table on a map. Pivot table on a map using 3D maps. I have a lot of examples of that, but we have to get to the data model. The data model is the really cool thing here. In Excel 2010, Microsoft introduced PowerPivot. PowerPivot was a free add-in. When I saw that product, it was actually in 2008. A guy named Donald Farmer demoed it for the Excel team. I remember that day. It was a weird day. Usually at the MVP Summit, it's all the Excel people. We hang together, but that day they took us across campus, and it was a bunch of Excel people on one side of the room and a bunch of SQL Server Analysis Services people on the other side of the room. We know each other really well, the Excel MVPs. Those people seem to know each other really well, but we had never seen each other before. Donald Farmer came in with 100 million rows on sheet 1 and 60 million rows on sheet 2, and I knew that nothing would ever be the same again. That night I called my editor. I said, I know what book I'm going to write. I can't tell you anything about it. It's going to be the greatest thing ever. And I wrote a book about PowerPivot. I went up to Donald Farmer and I said, how much is this going to cost? He's like, it's going to be free. And I'm like, no, charge $50. People will hand over their money left and right. He's like, oh no, I got a server version. I'm going to sell the server version. Yeah, no one bought the server version. And by Excel 2013, they didn't want it to be free anymore. They were going to charge an extra $2 a month, or whatever. There was this confusing licensing scheme. And so by the time they introduced it into the product, the PowerPivot name had kind of gone away a little bit, and they started calling it the data model. The data model. They didn't want you to realize that you secretly had most of PowerPivot, even if you didn't pay for PowerPivot. And by 16 and 19, the way that they added the relationships out here, and the ability in 16 to create a new measure by right-clicking in the field pane. By that point, all of PowerPivot, just about, was in for free. And finally, by Excel 2019, the jig's up. They let it. Everyone gets PowerPivot for free. All right, but the whole reason that no one realizes that the data model is there and how powerful it is because they were trying to get you to pay more for PowerPivot. All right, so here's my example. I have two worksheets worth of data. On sheet 1 is the green data: product, date, customer, quantity, revenue, and profit. And then I have a nice little lookup table on sheet 2. Now I put them together here so we can see them side by side, the blue table. For this to work, you need to make it into a table. And I understand a lot of my friends make things into tables all the time. I don't. I hate tables. They're not done. They wanted to take them out of the product, but it was too hard to take it out of the product. So it shipped with a whole bunch of things broken. Custom views don't work. Subtotals don't work. I could go on and on why I hate tables and all the bugs in tables. I get it. A lot of you already use tables already, but for me, I only use tables in this example. So make it into a table with Control T, and they call this one table 1, this one table 2, but we're going to rename these. All right. So this one, I've come here to the table design and renamed it to be data, and this one came into table design and renamed it to be sectors. All right, and what I want to do is I want to create a pivot table from these two tables without doing XLOOKUP or VLOOKUP. So I start from the original data set, insert pivot table from table or range, and the most important thing, add this data to the data model. All right, that says we're going to send it to the PowerPivot engine. Click OK, and I can create my pivot table here with customer and revenue, like that. But there's a tiny little change here. At the top, it says active and all. And when I choose all, they offer me all of the tables in the workbook. And that allows me to come here to the sectors table and choose sector. All right, and what's happened, actually sector should be the outer field. We'll even take customer out for a second just so you can see how wrong it is. Every single sector is there with the wrong revenue, right? We're getting 6.7 million for everybody. And they say over here, hey, a relationship between tables may be needed. In Excel 2010, they had auto detect. Excel 2013, it went away. Excel 2016, it's back. Just in case you're stuck on 2013, the create dialog box leads to this, where we say we have a table called data. It has a field called customer. We're relating that to the sectors table, which also has a field called customer. So 4 clicks to create that, but in any other version, you just auto detect and they'll figure it out. All right, so we just created data from 2 different worksheets. It's a one-to-many relationship, and works great. This essentially, for the people that can't do VLOOKUP or XLOOKUP, this allows them to get one step higher in their quest for Excel greatness. Yeah. All right. Tell you what, I have a lot of reasons why I love the data model that probably irritate the heck out of the PowerPivot team. For me, the data model lets me do all kinds of things that regular pivot tables will let me do. In fact, let me just go back to my regular data set. This one here, the BCO1 that I started with. And I'll get rid of, hang on, we'll close that, file close. Save changes, don't save, and.
Bill?
Yes.
Do you want, let me know when you want second poll.
Right. Second poll.
You may have forgotten, I'm not sure.
I forgot all about it. Yeah, I'm so excited talking about pivot tables.
I
second
see.
Poll. Yep. Go for it.
Okay.
It's hot.
Okay, so there's a second poll coming up. It's asking, have you ever chosen add this data to the data model when creating a pivot table? Option 1, all the time. Option 2, only when I need one of the cool features. 3, no, what does that even mean? 4th option, I never noticed this setting.
Right. In a regular room, people that just use Excel 40 hours a week, I bet 30% of the people would be in one of those last 2. Never noticed it. What does it mean? But in this room, it's going to be a lot of the
let's
first
wait
2.
a little bit. Yeah, to have more. We have 50 votes, 52 so far.
Cool.
I also see that sometimes we lose some of the features when we use data table. I can't remember from the top of my head which ones, but I know that it's kind of a trade-off sometimes.
They're getting better. They're getting better. In that first book that I wrote, I had a list of 12 things that got lost when you use PowerPivot, and they have slowly been working through that. I love to complain. That's my favorite hobby, is complaining about things, and they just eliminated most of my ability to complain.
Okay, we have 66 votes so far, and option 2, only when I need one of the cool features, has 55%.
That's awesome.
And then we have all the time at 20%, and the last 2 options are 14 and 12%.
All right, for those of you in the 14 and 12, I am going to change your life right now. All right, regular data set here, nothing special, no relationships, 564 rows, no reason to add this in the data model at all, except for my manager wants to know how many customers there are in each sector, right? So regular pivot table, insert, pivot table, okay, choose sector, choose customer, that's all I'm going to do right there. And we're just going to remember that communications has 3, energy has 2, financial has 4. 3, 2, and 4. 3, 2, and 4. I can remember that. 3, 2, and 4. I'm going to take the customer field and drag it from rows to values, and it's going to count automatically. But it's not 3, 2, and 4. It's 48, 70, and 84. And even though this says count of customer, it's not a count of customer. It's how many orders those customers had. All right. There's 11 calculations. Sum, count, average, max, min. When you check the box, insert pivot table from table or range and say add this data to the data model, I'm going to do the exact same thing, sector and then customer in the values area. I get the exact same wrong answers, but here's the difference. Because I chose the data model, when I double click, sum, count, average, max, min go all the way to the bottom, and there's an 11th item. Product has been taken out, but distinct count is there. Click OK. 3 in communications, 2 in energy, 4 in financial. You have the ability to create a distinct count of customer. In the book, there's examples here where we can do budget versus actual using the data model. There's an example in the book where I can put text, I can concatenate text into the values area of a pivot table, but only if I use the data model. Here's the other one that I just love, and the thing that, had I still been working somewhere, would have been something that I would have used every single week. So I'm going to take customer revenue. I'm going to build that exact same report, the top 10 report. I'm going to say show values as a percentage of the column total. Click OK. And just remember down here, we're $6.7 million, 12.96%. And I'm going to go into customer and value filters, top 10. The only difference between now and an hour from ago was that I chose the box for add this data to the data model. Top 5 items based on summer revenue. Click OK. And Walmart, 869,000 is back to 13% of the 6.7 million. Why is it back to 13% of the 6.7 million? Because in pivot table options, I checked the box that said for subtotals, include filter items and totals. That was grayed out on January 30th of 2007. It's been 14 years that I've been checking every single day to see if it was back. All I had to do was check the box, add that data to the data model, and that feature becomes alive, right? Okay. Other things that become alive from that box is OLAP tools, convert to formulas. Okay. And I get real life formulas that are pointing into the data model. All kinds of just amazing, amazing things that you get from choosing the box called data model. It's 651, where do we go? Hang on, sorry. Celia, I know we should take questions, but I just got to show 2 more things.
Okay, no worries.
Yeah, sorry.
We have time.
Okay.
That was
right.
Just an approximate scheduling.
Oh, good. So we can stay here till midnight? That's good.
Yeah.
Let's keep rolling.
I think the limit for a Teams meeting is a couple of weeks or months. You can stay.
Let's go for
the
it.
meeting will stay on.
All right, customer, revenue, profit. There's a nice little report. All right, sector up in the filters. So these old school filters. It was Excel 2007. It used to be you could just choose one. I could choose retail and get all the customers in retail. That was fine. Then in 2007, they gave us this ability to select multiple items, and I could choose retail and manufacturing. And it's super annoying that they give me the answer. They give me retail and manufacturing, but they call it multiple items. I actually met this guy. I met the guy who did multiple items in those parentheses. I said, why did you choose that? He's like, what do you want me to choose? I said, retail, manufacturing. You could tell he had never thought of it. But he scrambled a little bit. He said, well, that's fine if you have 2. What if you have 50? I said, well, if you choose 50, then yeah, no one's going to be able to understand it. But no one can understand this. 100% of the time here, I don't know what I've selected. At least, if you would put it in, and he's like, it's not going to fit. And I get frustrated because all of us, anyone who signed up to this seminar, you know things in Excel. You have a deep knowledge in Excel that the Excel team doesn't know, right? They're focused on their little bit of Excel. They don't know Excel as well as we know Excel, right? And you all know if I need to make that fit here under the alignment tab, I click that dialog launcher and there's something called shrink to fit on the alignment tab, right? Just turn on shrink to fit, I said. it'll be great, right? And that would have been one of those things that I would have gone on to excel.uservoice.com to fight for, but I didn't have to, because in Excel 2010 they gave us this awesome thing called a slicer. And with slicers, I never use the old filters anymore. Slicers are beautiful. So here on the Analyze tab or the Insert tab, I'll insert slicers by sector and product, maybe by region. Choose whatever you want. They always get tiled here in the middle of the screen, and they're always one column, even though they would fit a lot better if they were 3 columns. And I always change the color of a few of them, right, just to add a little bit of variety. And they're smart. If I would choose healthcare, only Merck, and Merck only buys ABC. See the other products, they're grayed out. If I would choose retail, I get all the retail customers and what they buy everything. If I would choose retail and manufacturing, that was a control click there, or you could use this little checkbox. And you get to see what's up with that. And the beautiful thing about a slicer is the slicer can control all of the pivot tables. So if I need another pivot table, I'm going to copy this one, come over here and paste, and then change this to be something else like product instead of customer, and percentage of total. Show values as a percentage of the column total, click OK. All right, and that pivot table now will automatically react to the things I do to the slicers, right? So having multiple pivot tables reacting at the same time to slicers. Now again, we're running out of time, but you need to check in the book. There's a cool trick there about how, when you have data in 2 different data sets in one set of slicers to control them. I used to do that with VBA. I don't do it anymore. With VBA, I do it with slicers for pivot tables from 2 data sets. This is on page 114 of the book. Check that out. Also in the book, a great trick that I learned from Roger. Roger from Wales. I don't know, Roger, it's the middle of the night for you. Are you still here? Roger, I stole your trick of how to replace a pivot table with 3 dynamic arrays. That's on page 182 of the book. Boy, I hope I gave you credit, or I hope that you hung up. One of the two. All right. Yep, hang on, one more. And I don't even have it, I bet I don't have it here. So earlier today, I talked about how I hate GetPivotData, and how GetPivotData, is just universally hated. And I was having a conversation with Rob Colley, who used to be on the Excel team, was on the PowerPivot team. And he said one sentence that I couldn't understand. He says, our internal customers are gonna be really upset that GetPivotData doesn't work in PowerPivot. Back at the time it wouldn't work. And I am like, what? What do you mean? No one likes GetPivotData. He's like, yeah, no one outside of Microsoft likes GetPivotData, but people inside of Microsoft love it. So what I have here is I have 150 stores. This is a chain, retail chain. For every month, I have a plan. So there's all the January plans, and then the February plans, and then the March plans. And after 12 months worth of plans, I start to get actuals, right? And what my manager wants to do is my manager wants me to show actuals when I have them. So insert pivot table. I'm going to put store down the left-hand side, months going across the top, type going across the top. Oh, no. And then sales, right? And my goal here, so January actual, January plan, and January total. By the way, that column is completely meaningless. You'll never need that column. Adding actual and plan together, it's not a thing. So we're going to get rid of the subtotals for that. So we'll just say no subtotals, get rid of that column. But if I need to hide the plan column here, it's going to hide all the other plan columns. Like there's no good way for me to get to where I need to go. So what I would do every single month is I would create this pivot table, copy, paste as values, and then start deleting the columns that don't belong there. The people in the accounting department at Microsoft figured out this awesome trick. They let this pivot table live. They refresh it every month. It's the world's ugliest pivot table, but they come and create what I call the super report. It's just straight Excel. There's no magic here at all, other than when I change the through date in P1, this changes from the word actual to planned. And for the very first cell, this is January actual Baybrook, I make sure to use the mouse to build the formula, equal sign. I go look at my pivot table, find Baybrook, find January actual, and click. And sure enough, I'm get pivot dated. I don't know if that's a verb or not. I just made it into a verb, right? And for the first time in my life, I remember this day, I've always gotten rid of get pivot data. I've never looked at it. I had to go read Excel help to see what it's doing. I'm pulling the sales field from the pivot table that lives here. There's a field called store, and we want Baybrook. And that's why this doesn't copy, because they've hard-coded Baybrook. And it was Carlos Otero on the Excel team working in Microsoft accounting at the time, who realized that instead of Baybrook, he needed a point to cell D6, F4 3 times, so single $ before the D. And then up here, instead of hard coding January, you go click on January, and that should have F4 twice. And then actual, I'm going to click on E4. All right, so what I've done now is I've parameterized the GetPivotData. Now it's going to actually work for me. So I'm going to paste special formulas. Same thing down here, paste special formulas. All right, so this is data that's now coming from a pivot table, but it has all kinds of great things that pivot tables never have, like $ on the first and last row, but not in the other rows. Blank rows where I want them. Things organized in the way I want it to be. All right, so a cool use for GetPivotData. Now, you have to be super careful that if they add a new store, you have to add it here. You have to remember to add that. You should have a check down outside of the print range to make sure that the total here matches the total in the pivot table to warn you when there's a new store. But a cool use for all of you who think that GetPivotData is completely evil, there are some cool uses for it. All right, download the book. Everything I talked about today is in that book. Let's open it up for any questions.
Yeah, I'm putting the link there in the chat where you can download the part of the portion of the book related to pivot tables, and then whoever wants to purchase the full book, there's information there, right, on the PDF, Bill?
Yes.
About
yeah,
that?
on the copyright page, top of the copyright page, there's the link to buy the book. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So questions, I registered a few. If I missed something and someone wants to repeat it, if it's very important, let us know. Christian was asking if there is a limit of rows when you drill down on a pivot table.
So if your data is a pivot cache, I think you get them all. But if it's in the data model, then you only get the first 1,000, right? So if you're using the data model, if it's external data, you only get the first 1,000. At least that used to be the limit. Yeah, so regular pivot tables, I think you get everything. Yeah.
Lloyd was asking if you could show us again how to get the map.
The map, for sure. Okay, so we just have data that has any kind of geography at all. So let's come here to Power Map, Australia, how about that? Which has city, state, territory, country, population. Select that data. You don't even have to make it into a table. By all rates, you should. They're making it into a table behind the scene. And then insert 3D map. It's just the rate of the charts group. And again, in Excel 2013, it was called Power Map. All right. And the first thing they want to know is they want to know what are you charting by. So I choose city over here, and then I want to sum by population. Did they add that, or did I do that previously? I'm not sure. And then for category, that changes the color. I chose state or territory. This had to be something that I've done previously. All right, and then the wild things here are the keys to navigate. So hold down Control and spin the wheel mouse towards you to zoom out, or away from you to zoom in. And then the Alt key and dragging the mouse left and right will spin like that, but up and down you'll look from the ground or from the sky. All right, so getting used to those navigation keys. And it even lets you build a tour, so you can like have a little map. You can animate data over time, which I don't have a date field here. It's a cool feature. I love when they added it. I think I'm going to whisper. It was Tableau. Tableau introduced this, and they rushed to match. You know, back when they thought that Tableau was their main competitor. So the fact that Tableau added it, they added it to Excel. Although the team that created this, they're not a team anymore, so they'll never add new features to it at this point. So just start with anything that has city or state or zip code, postal code, latitude, longitude. You can even build a power map of your warehouse floor if you have XY locations. Yeah. All right, great question.
Christian was also asking about that data that you used before about the flight. Is it easy for you to let us know how to download that type of data?
So here's the deal. There's two websites, Flight Stats and Flight Aware, and you have to find a flight that is in the air right now. Okay. For flights that happened yesterday, you have to buy the data. You have to subscribe and pay for every bit that you download. But if you can find a flight that is currently in the air, that's why that flight, Air Canada flight, left Toronto at 2 o'clock, and I knew they'd be in the air for the entirety of this session. Then, you drill down. I went to Flight Aware today, and it has a link to show the position. And then from that position, I went to Power Query, and Celia, this is where you could probably make that Power Query actually work. Yeah.
Let's see. We'll take a look.
I'm so embarrassed at what I did. The first altitude was 900, 900. Like if they were at 900 feet, it said 900, 900. So it was 6 characters. And then they were at 1100, 1100. And I needed to split the data in half. If it was 10 characters, I needed the left 5. But if it was 8 characters, I needed the left 4. If it was 3 characters, I needed the left 3. And I just went through horrible steps in a desperate attempt to get it here. But Flight Aware, Flight Stats, and find a flight that's en route.
We have Roger Grovier with his hand up, and then Asker Mirza as well. So if they want to speak up, turn on their mics. Feel free.
Roger.
Hi, Bill.
Hey.
Great presentation as always. Loved your little trick about adding the filters to the top of the table. But it may be that I'm one of the lucky few in the inside a fast section. But on my pivot tables now, when I create a pivot table, I get a filter button automatically on the first column. And when I click that filter, I can choose top 10 by and whatever field I want. So that's now come into pivot tables, but it wasn't happening on yours. So whether you're showing a slightly older version, I don't know, but it's good news to know that it's now coming in as a standard feature. Okay,
but Roger, I agree that top left corner cell A2 has top 10. I absolutely agree with that. But the difference there, Roger, is when I use that value filter top 10, the grand total will change, as it well should, possibly some would say, to only show the top 10 and the total of that. The advantage of using the other filter is that the grand total won't change. Like I want a scenario where I see those top 5 customers and then the total for everybody. And by using the magic cell, then I get to have the grand total go unchanged. So just a very small difference between the two. But I agree, this filter is here, and a lot of times it's really good. But there's times where you need it to do the other way. But good. I'm glad you pointed out that was there because I completely skipped it.
Bill, I'm very sorry because because figures were similar, one was 104,000 and one was 140,000 on the sample I was looking at. I was thinking that it had given me the proper grand total when I applied.
That's right.
So it was my error in thinking that they'd actually fixed it. And I thought I'd been one of the lucky few to get it, but not the case.
I would be completely jealous if you did have it, right? I would fly over and use your computer at lunch just for that.
I've never been in the lucky 50% ever. I'm always late in getting everything, Bill. But anyway, fabulous session. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Great stuff, and I'm sure everybody else enjoyed it too.
That's good. And Roger, again, a shout out to you for your replace a pivot table with 3 dynamic arrays, which I'm going to open up here, and everyone should check this amazing thing out. So this is a pivot table with customers down the left-hand side and products across the top, but it's not done as a pivot table at all. And this is Roger, like the day that they showed us dynamic arrays, Roger at lunch was like, oh, you could do a pivot table. And I'm like, what? And over here, the sort of the unique of the customers across the top, the transpose of the sort of the unique of the products. And then right there, a sum ifs, and it is just a glorious pivot table without a pivot table, thanks to the new dynamic arrays. So shout out to Roger for that trick. For me, that'll, like Dan from Philadelphia, this is Roger from Wales, taught me this trick. So
Thank you very much, Bill. I also can produce unique or distinct count without using the data model, because you can pivot the data and then pivot the pivot, and you can do it. And I've written a whole article on that, and it's up on Deborah Dalglish's Contextures website, which shows you how to get distinct or unique values without using the data model.
that is awesome. And Contextures has so many great pivot table articles. Anytime that I get stumped by something in a pivot table, the person who has the answer is Deborah. So
absolutely, she's the queen.
She is. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Absolutely.
Anyway,
so
I've hogged enough of your time, Bill. Thank you very, very much indeed, and thank you for the session.
Roger, I'm going to go look this up as soon as I'm done. Right. So I got it. Pivot the pivot. I'll find it.
Okay.
All right. All right. What else?
We have Oscar.
Yes.
Hey,
Hi,
Oscar.
Oscar. Go ahead. Thank you. Thank you for joining
Hi,
us.
sorry guys. Like it was very interesting, but it was too fast, and I'm not that expert per se. So, will there be a recording for this?
Yes, there will be a recording posted on YouTube in a few days. I will be sending out an email to everyone who registered for this session with the link for that YouTube video, and the link again to download the book if you missed it. The link is in the chat, but if you missed it, I can put it there again.
Yeah, you should put it there again.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because,
so, which book will be good? MrExcel 2021 Unmasking Excel or Microsoft Excel 2019 Pivot Table Data Crunching? Which one will be the most useful?
Everything we covered today is in the free excerpt that you can download of MrExcel 2021, right? So don't go buy anything. Just download this. It has everything we talked about today. Apart from today's, in the whole context of Excel. Then the other book, Microsoft Excel 2019 Pivot Table Data Crunching.
So how much it costs, boss?
That's great. Down here it's only $34.95. In Canada it'll be $8,000. So.
No, I'm in the United States.
Oh, perfect. $34.95, and probably less at Amazon.
Okay.
They discount that.
I'll send the information about MrExcel bookstore. The link, I'll send that on the email so that you can check that out too. Okay.
Both, yeah. So unmasking will be better, or Microsoft this pivot table crunching will be better?
Well, the pivot table data crunching covers. It would be a 10-hour seminar if I tried that book, and you have the benefit of Mike Alexander, who is a really funny guy. He wrote every other chapter, and he has a lot of cool tricks in there. So the Microsoft Excel 2019 definitely has a lot more content. Goes into PowerPivot more. There's a lot there. I guess the only benefit is minor. The things that were just recently added in the last year, like formatting one cell and having that format travel, is in MrExcel 2021.
And that was one of the questions. Someone was asking, when we do the number formatting in just one cell, like you showed us today, will it propagate to the entire pivot table if we change the data or update and we get more data, bigger?
Yes, it does. I can't believe
before it didn't happen, right? Before it wasn't like that.
Right.
Before we had to go through the field settings.
Yeah,
and that was last question.
Yeah,
sorry, guys. One last question. As I said, like I'm not a expert, but how could I become a expert Excel user? Like,
that's a great question.
Can I give a suggestion, Bill? And because I was also going to ask you to talk about this. And people ask me that all the time, and I think that one of the best ways to learn is to solve real problems. And one of the ways some people use is to go to forums, and MrExcel.com has one big Excel forum. Would you like to talk about that, Bill?
I would love to talk about that. So the thing that's amazing here, when I started MrExcel back in 1998, everyone sent their questions to me, and I would wake up every morning at 4 a.m. and answer questions. But when it got to the point where it took more than an hour to answer questions, I had to go to work. Like I had a day job. And so I launched the MrExcel Forum, and this thing has taken on an amazing life of its own. Collectively, the community here has answered over 1 million questions. And just imagine this, imagine that there was a mountain, and on top of the mountain, there sat a guru who knew everything about Excel. But not just one guru, put 100 gurus on top of that mountain, right? The awesome thing to do is to sit there at the top of the mountain and watch people who have real live problems coming up that mountain every day to ask the gurus, how would you solve this, right? And watching the conversation between the various gurus of how, I would do it this way, I would do it this way, and then finally someone comes along and says, oh no. My favorite is Aladdin from The Hague in the Netherlands. Aladdin will pop in and say, or you could do this. And then everyone, who I respect will go like, oh, right, that moment. So watching that conversation, you could do it this way, you could do it this way, this way, this way, this way. And then someone has the method, everyone's like, oh, well, that's the best way, right? Now, again, this wasn't your problem. This is just watching some random person come to the top of the mountain and say, I have this problem. You learn what they're doing with Excel. You learn, what their problem was. Things that you never imagined you could do with Excel. You'll see people come and post their problems, and then you'll get to watch the walkthrough of you could do it this way or this way or this way, and then the consensus is, oh, that. Just looking here. So I'm on the site now. So here's one that's been viewed 16 times already with 5 answers. You want to cruise through here just in the last day and find the one that generated a big series of conversations, 17 answers. And this, it's one of two things, and I hope this person's not here. It could be that this person doesn't explain their problem well, and it's hey, I've got a problem. Oh, here, do this. Oh, no, that doesn't work. Oh, here, do this. No, it still doesn't work. I didn't explain it. Sometimes these devolve into one of those, and that's not interesting. But when you get here's the problem. Oh, you could do it this way or this way or this way or this way. You'll learn so much of that. Just read 1 or 2 of those a day. Within a year, you'll be just the guru.
And even maybe take some of those questions and try to solve get an answer to post there. So try to solve the problem.
Well, yeah, can I add? I want to add.
Yeah,
because
sure,
I get this question a lot as well. You're not gonna master Excel. You get good at something in Excel.
That's true.
There are people who connect Excel to databases all the time. I have never had to do that in more than 20 years. My world is cleansing data and building tools. I don't build a lot of graphs, and somebody got on my case. You're an MVP and you don't know about bubble charts? No, that's not my world.
Right.
So mastering Excel, you master something that you do with Excel.
Okay, got it. Thank you, guys. I'll follow your advice strictly. Thanks a lot.
Yeah,
Thank you, Oscar. There's Karen with her hand up as well.
Yeah, I had a question.
Oh, Ryan Wade is here.
I'll slip it out.
Oh, right, yeah. I'm getting mellow. Yeah.
So one of my biggest frustrations with pivot tables is my formatting keeps messing up, and it's on data refreshes, usually using Power Query, and it's orders and maybe the top column shading is moving down or whatever. I've written VBA to reformat it not manually, but having somebody click a button. But is there an issue there that maybe I don't know about? I've got, preserve cell formatting turned on. I've got change column widths turned off and all of that.
Yeah, right. Are you using any of these built-in styles back here on the design tab, this gallery of pivot table styles with banded rows? I don't know. Yeah, you might try that. or right. So the other thing you can do is, next time that it happens, if you could send me a screenshot or something like that, right? And the secret email address that no one knows is the first 3 letters of the word publisher, because I'm too lazy to type publisher at MrExcel.com, pub at MrExcel.com. And you have to have this subject line. Hey, I was in your seminar. right? With that subject line, that means that I know that you've been in my seminar, right? And I offer lifetime tech support in Excel, right? So there you are. Karen, next time it happens, send me a short little note. Send it at the end of the day, and then I'll get it like at 4 a.m. when I wake up. Nothing brightens my day more at 4 a.m. than to have some weird Excel problem. And you'll have an answer by the time you show up at work.
I love that. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, Karen.
Okay, and can continue to go up. We have Lundblad, Gary, if you want to go ahead. Not sure. I cannot hear anything.
Yeah,
I'm not sure
try and unmute.
Gary Lundblad.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, now we
hear
can.
you. Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Teams have my device settings wrong. Hey, Bill, excellent session. I had a question. So the new filter function. Yes. There's not a way to do a not equal to in the filter function, is there?
Yeah, no, you should be able to do that.
I have not been able to find it, and I searched. I couldn't find anything online. I didn't spend a ton of time.
Yes.
Yeah. So
you should watch my videos. I showed that.
That's awesome.
I realize.
So I'm gonna. I included the headings. I shouldn't have done that. I'm gonna say where sector is not equal to. Boy, I should have made this larger. Is not equal to transportation, or not equal to retail. And I'm going to make this larger so we can see it. So equal filter of that section where column D is not equal to retail. I should get everything. Do I have any retail in there? Yeah, so Walmart should go away. Oh, what's that? You should watch Oz's video. Oh no, it's the wrong video. Right here.
I think that's what happened when I tried it.
Okay, so you know what had happened to me was I included the wrong shape. So the original one included the headings in row 1 and the second one didn't. And because they weren't the same number of rows, I got the value error. But there.
Well, maybe I did the same thing. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. That new filter function is amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah, I love it.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Right.
Awesome. Thanks, Bill.
Yep.
And we have Carlos Barbosa from Peru.
Hey, Carlos. Well, Carlos
and
is
then
unmuting.
John Peltier.
He was waiting for a proper announcement like Carlos Barbosa.
This is so funny. Oz, are we allowed to tell? Oz and I,
yes.
Oz and I made plans last week that we're going to update our book, Guerrilla Data Analysis using Microsoft Excel, to the 3rd edition. And Carlos sent a video to Oz saying, hey, you guys should update this book. It's looking kind of old here. So, Carlos, we're going to dedicate that book to you, right? Because heck yeah.
Heck yeah.
Carlos, we cannot hear you. You're muted. Not sure if you are trying to speak or not. Maybe we can have John Peltier, and then if Carlos figures out the
John
settings there. Or is it, who is this?
Carlos says 1 second. Will there be beverages involved in that update? I'm sure.
So if you want to speak, you need to unmute your microphone at the top corner, right corner. You need to click the microphone to get your microphone on.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes.
Now we hear
Oh,
you.
nice. Okay, now you can hear me. Okay, well, great session, Bill. Great session. I just wanted to share this small, I think very useful trick for everybody. Would it be possible to share my screen, Celia?
Yes.
Yeah. Let me see real quick. I just see so many things open right now. But yeah.
Carlos, I have to find you here in the list. You were at the top, but now you're not anymore. Oh, there you
Yeah.
are.
Okay.
Yeah, because you. So make a presenter.
Okay.
There you go. Should be able to share now.
All right. Okay.
And you can stop sharing, Bill. Maybe I'm not sure. I think once Carlos starts sharing.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Can you guys see my screen right now? Yeah.
Yeah, we can see yours.
So the first trick is like one thing that I do a lot is to like this window can pop out, like you can pop it out from here. So sometimes because of the space, if you have a lot of fields that you're working on, so that's one tip I wanted to share with you guys. And you can pop it up and put it maybe on the left, maybe on the right, maybe on the middle. And also that this window, the pivot table field, you can place it on top of the ribbon of Excel, and you can even make it larger if needed. So that's one small, very tiny tip. And then also if you wanted to put it back, you can just double click it, and then it will put it back there in the same place.
What do you mean by putting at the top of the ribbon?
Oh, I mean, you see how pivot table, you see the name right here, PivotTableFields is right here, and it's right under this ribbon.
Oh, okay.
So you can put it, let me pop it out again. If you just click it, left click and hold it down, you pop it out, and then you can put it on top of the ribbon of this ribbon, Celia. So you can make it larger if needed. So. And you can also make.
I see. So you can get more room for the. Now I see what you mean.
All right, and Carlos. So I'm going to add to yours. I'm going to yes and you. To do this awesome trick, take that and drag it all the way off the left side of the screen, and it'll dock to the left. Left side, all the way farther. Let go.
Oh,
there it is.
Yeah. Nice. So you can. Okay, that's awesome. Oh, didn't know that. Huh? Nice. Nice. Thanks, Bill. So
thanks, Carlos.
The second one, and they go along. So let me just, I can actually use it right here. We can continue from here. Is that, for example, in this pivot table that you guys see here, let me just zoom a little bit. Yeah. So I have the sales value and the sales units, and I get often asked by managers and users. They ask me, hey, we want to see sales values and sales units at the same time for the pivot table. But what a lot of people, I don't know, I always share this, don't know, is that you can move this field, the value field right here that is on the column area. You can move it all the way to put it on the row sections. Once you put it there, then you have this result. And it will combine, it will make, I think, in my opinion, it would make the pivot table a little bit more accessible, more legible, I guess. And then the third trick and last one is that you guys see that this is all like very, like a little bit mush or very, very tight. You can insert a blank line with going right here to report layout and go to right here, no, actually blank rows. And you insert a blank line. Once you click on that, then you have a little bit more space, and and the pivot table can breathe a little bit. Just very tiny and tips there. I just want to share.
Carlos, those are great tricks. I'm gonna direct you to show one more trick for us, all right? But we have to do it on your screen. So I need you to take your mouse to the cell that says sales units.
Sure.
So okay, don't click on it. So now go to the next one that says sales units. Don't click. I just need you to hover, and I need you to get to the left 20% of that cell. So go down 3 rows to sales units, the left 20% of that cell. Right now your mouse is a white plus. Go down 3 rows. 1, 2, 3.
3 rows. Okay, like this.
No, sorry, I'm describing it poorly. Yeah. So click on that cell that you're on right now. Go to sales units, but don't click on it.
Okay.
And go to the left 20. Keep going left to the left 20%. And you just missed. It's when it changes to a black arrow. Nope.
Right here.
Nope. To the right of that.
The little black arrow.
Okay, like this one right here.
Right there, yeah. Now click that, and that'll select all the sales units in the whole pivot table. Now change the fill color. Change the fill color to anything.
So let's do a little bit yellow. So
Right. Oh, now that looks bad with the blank row. If the blank rows weren't there, it would be beautiful. All the sales units would be one color. All the sales values would be the other.
So
Yeah.
let's see if we can turn it off here, and let's like that.
Yep.
Okay.
And it makes it
Yeah.
sales value be the same, and it has to be the
Nice.
left 20% of that cell, and it will select all of them at the same level or something like that. It's crazy how much weird stuff is in pivot tables, isn't it? Like just these weird facts that somehow got in there.
Yeah.
Over there.
And the thing about that arrow, Bill, is that it also can serve as like a digital or virtual ruler, meaning like if you click there, once you have it there, then you with your keyboards, your up arrow or down arrow, it can just move. You can go up and serve as like a ruler. Yeah.
Yeah. Carlos, I'll be down tomorrow. We'll be drinking beer together. Okay.
Sure.
We're gonna
I actually promised Austin I'll be drinking one beer because he gave me the news about Guerrilla Data Analysis. Third edition.
Yeah.
No, so.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So I'll stop here. Okay. Thanks.
That's awesome.
Thank you, Carlos. Yeah, it's amazing.
You,
I
Celia,
say
for it.
it's Bill says it's amazing the amount of stuff in pivot tables, and I say it's amazing that you know them all.
But every time I do a seminar, I learn something new. So it's that's the awesome thing.
John Peltier, are you there? You have your hand up.
Yes, I'm here. It took me a minute to turn on my microphone.
Yeah.
I just wanted to expand on something that Oz pointed out is, we look at all this stuff and so many of the sessions we do are called tips and tricks, right? And pivot table tips and tricks. And I got one coming up, charting tips and tricks. And I really hate tips and tricks because you don't learn Excel from learning tips and tricks. That's like saying you're going to learn guitar by learning a few little licks that B.B. King used to do. And you're not going to be good at guitar. You learn guitar by playing guitar. You learn Excel by playing Excel, by doing everything you can with Excel. You do your shopping list at home with Excel, but you sort it different ways. You cut it and slice it and dice it, and you make a pivot table, or you do charts, or, whatever the thing is you do in Excel. Oz, right? Am I right? And
yeah, you got to do it.
You just got to get in there and play with it. You got to work on real projects. You got to start doing something, and you figure out how it works, how to make Excel do what you want, because this computer has to work for you, not the other way around, right?
Right.
And it takes a while to do that, but that's how you get good at this stuff. You get good. Bill didn't just sit down and say, okay, I'm going to learn a few tips and tricks on pivot tables, and now he knows all the tips and tricks. You learn the tips and tricks because you know pivot tables inside and out. You know all these because you've been playing with it for how long? 25 years. When did they come out? And
long time ago.
And so you just got to sit down and work on it and work some real problems and see what happens when you change this. What happens? Oh, that wasn't right. I got to go back and change it differently. And that's what we're not MVP because we know the tricks. We're MVPs because we've been doing this stuff for a long time and we learned some stuff.
But something though is also because this is worth a big conversation itself at some point. Because I'm thinking now about Bill pointed out to me years ago about a group of folks. He says, you know what? They spend a lot of time using Excel, but they do this certain thing. They're good at that certain thing, that professional thing. Like if somebody did logistics, right? And so they spend a long time, years and years, doing nothing but logistics. That's all they're going to do with Excel. Yeah. But then there is seeing a whole lot of stuff over a long period of time, like, my work going and doing stuff with nonprofits, and then going and working with this insurance agent and his part-time assistant, and then over here, and then starting to see a whole bunch of similarities and differences, and it gets fascinating, right? But still, I don't know everything in Excel.
I love
Nobody knows
Hey,
everything in Excel, but we all know a certain subset of it, and you become an MVP because you know that subset and you share it with everybody,
right.
and people learn about it.
Right. But Bill was going to say something.
Oz, coming from nonprofits, your data sets are completely different than all the data sets I ever had, like when I worked. And so I love your examples because they're just completely 90 degrees different than what I run into all the time, you know, and it just depends on, you know, some of the folks we know are engineers and they have weird data sets, or the investors have weird data sets, you know, it's completely different problems, but.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
But also
Wait,
with Excel.
Us can. Hey,
Yeah, Carlos?
oh no, just wanted to say, just as promised, Us. For the
Okay. There you go. There you go. Yeah. Oh, it's that time. It's after 4 o'clock. It's after 4 o'clock. See, yeah, it's time.
Nice, Carlos.
Yeah.
All right.
right.
So I think we are getting to close to an end. Yeah, that's the book.
This one, that's the book. Need
Pull
to
out
get
the
it. Oh, the beer, third edition coming out, and then what's best is Us photo here in the back that says, "Can be a victim of bad data."
That was fun. That was real fun.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Oh, yeah. Yes. There you go, Alan.
It's like,
yes,
it's
there
like
you
bingo.
Go. There you go.
Alan, hold that up again.
I only have a
go.
digital version.
Wow.
I'm going to say
Nice.
thank you to everybody. It's 75 degrees in Detroit, and the fact that I'm still here and it's sunny and 75 means that you guys are awesome. I'm going to add one more thing about learning Excel, which is it's not learning everything, it's learning how to find the answers, and it's the forums. And it's, I always tell people I'm good at the Google, you know, it's like I'm good at finding the answer. I don't know all the answers.
Right.
So thank you, everyone.
Yes.
Have a great
I
night.
think MVPs are faster at Google than everybody else.
Good call.
Right.
Great point,
Josh
Karen.
is heading out. Good seeing Josh.
Great to be with a bunch of MVPs and learn from them.
Awesome.
So John, May 12th, John will be presenting all about charts, right? And I'll be here for that.
Yes.
Just I already wrote
And
it
it
down.
will be a it will
Better
be
invite
tips and
Oz to
tricks
that one.
about charts.
Extra credit to anybody who recognizes my background picture.
Oz, you joined to that?
No idea. What is it?
It's the album cover from Closer to the Edge, the inside cover. Album from about 1972 or something. When I was still a kid.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so Bill, do you want to, so that I can stop the recording, would you like to tell us again just where people can find you, how people can see your content, find your books, connect with you?
So YouTube, MrExcel.com, there's a bunch of videos out there. MrExcel.com, the website. Just ask around. Just go to the street car and say, "Hey, where's?"
And then there's
Bill?
the message board where they can find the forum, right?
Right. Yeah. And again, the magic secret to get to me is the 4 a.m. email. All right, because no one's calling at 4 a.m. I'm in a mood to answer Excel questions at 4 a.m. So just send it late, and
you'll get it early.
magic. Yeah. Right.
Thank you so much, Bill. This was an amazing session in content, in good mood, and having people here with us. It was great. Thank you so much for sharing all your expertise with us.
Thanks.
It was fantastic.